Well, a little more on purpose and meaning. Uh, John's fault he brought it up on our recent kind of pen pal thing we got going, or camera pal, I guess. Um, and earlier he talked about materialism too. You know, for a lot of people, that is their purpose and meaning. Uh, to have fun, have the best toys, have the prettiest woman, um, or what or whatever your sex and preferences. But to have good sex and to have all the valuable things, a house, a beautiful house full of beautiful paintings and furniture and a hot car to drive. That's really what life is for a lot of people. But I suspect it leaves them empty at times. Leaves them feeling, they still feel that void they're trying to fill. We're all trying to fill that void, I would suspect. Maybe there are some people who never think about it. The happy-go-lucky life. Perhaps I know some people like that. It's hard to say what's deep in the heart of man, though, or heart of the seemingly simpleton, easygoing person you might meet. But, I've lived my life very frugally, parsimonious, deprived myself of a lot of luxuries, lived pretty much a poverty lifestyle, which I kind of adopted being in college and never really got out of, trying to survive on as little as I could. But, I wonder about it sometimes. The material stuff is nice to have. It rarely satisfies for very, very long, though. Satisfies you for very long. My first real adult relationship with a woman was, and I still am in contact with her all these years later, decades later. But, she's got quite the opposite spin on materialism. She's never denied herself the best things in life, or rarely anyway. She's always lived a little beyond of what she could really afford. And she did have money at one time, so that kind of ran through her fingers. And other circumstances that, I won't get into all that detail, but her philosophy is, I've been in debt all my life. But, I've had all the great furniture, I've had beautiful houses, I've had beautiful sports, nice sports equipment. She always has the best snowboard and etc. And so what if she owes on it? She's lived a higher life standard than she could really afford her whole life. So to her, it seems like a good deal. Maybe I'm wrong with my parsimonious ways. Sometimes I wonder. But for me, the having debt just drives me freaking crazy. And for me, it's just so much more valuable to me not to have the stress of debt, the stress of being beholden to anyone. To me, that independence and that freedom means a lot more to me than having a new pair of skis every year, or the best car every year, like some people do. So materialism doesn't really satisfy me much. I really should up my lifestyle a little bit. I can afford it to a degree. I'm trying to pack away money for some future all my life, and now I'm an old man. I still haven't had much fun. So there's a pitfall to that too. Hopefully I can retire in a few years and start enjoying a little bit of my long squirreled away gains before the government or inflation or something else takes it all. So I don't know, sex and material things don't seem to be the answer and they are in the short term. It would be nice to have a wife, a family. Those certainly I can't discount those, although I'll probably never really have them. I'm too old to raise a family now. You know, I know some millionaires do that. They marry the young woman, and just thinking like David Letterman, how old he is, and has young children, and some other people I could mention too in the same vein. I guess that's worth it for them. They got the money. There's nothing else to do. It's probably not going to be my situation though. So what about meaning of life? Well, John said, from the science viewpoint, it's about reproduction. The meaning of life is to reproduce and have the species go on. Well, maybe that's not very fulfilling for the individual, though. Is there any purpose to the individual? The individual rabbit that runs through the woods here, or an individual deer. Does that one individual really mean anything? Or is it just about the group of deer, the group of people, the civilization as a whole? How important is an individual? And the person doesn't mean much to many people. The rabbit in the woods, no one knows. No one has named him. How many other rabbits know that rabbit? Is he just a meal for a coyote? So reproduction, it's kind of amazing how strong the hardwired desires are for sex and lust, how it really consumes a young male, to a degree females too, of course. But a young man, an older boy, a younger man, constantly horny. It's the be-all and everything of your life, really, at that point in your life. It just possesses you. It's kind of curious. I watched a few videos of these people who call themselves asexuals, how they really have no big desire for any kind of sexual life. And this one couple even dating each other, a male and a female, and they didn't have any sex in their long date, even though it was a transcontinental date. That was kind of strange. I understand it at some point, though. Now that I'm older, I'm not horny all the time. I'm asexual myself a lot of the time. And and during those times when I don't have that horniness, it just seems the mechanics of sex and all just seem so ugh. Why would you want to? Ugh. And of course, other times you think of nothing but that. So it's kind of strange how strong these hardwired impulses can control you, shape and change the whole texture of your life. Even people who are really strong philosophers, let's just for a wild example, bring up the, what's that guy called? Gary, what's his name? He calls himself in Mendenheim, which is a town, I guess, in the town of Mendenheim. But even he, walks around and talks about how horny he is and, panties, all this horny stuff. And yet he's so cynical and down on life itself, really, human life itself, what a fungus and disease it is. Seems like kind of a contrast that he still has his hardwired desires, and doesn't discount or look down on them. I just found that kind of interesting. I don't know where to go with that. The purpose of life, though, geez, that's something no one can really. Of course, we have religion to give you different answers for that. Depending your flavor of religion. And that's one of the big things of religion, is to answer all the questions that no one can answer. It really is sort of the whole God thing, though, is such an easy cop-out for answers. Deus ex machina, whatever all the other little expressions for that kind of thing, where it's such an easy cop-out. Say, well, God did it, God made it, God started it. Well, who made God? It's just a chicken and egg situation that never really goes anywhere. So what is it about existence? Is there a purpose to the individual? So I wonder about purpose and meaning and thoughts on that, religion, individuality, purpose of the individual as apart from the purpose of the crowd, religion, science. The Christian religions, not all of them, certainly there's religions like the Shakers, who pretty much unreproduced themselves out of existence. But in general, a lot of the Christian religions have taken the be fruitful and multiply to an extreme. Not just the Catholics, but many of the Protestants have the same viewpoint. They really eschew the idea there could be anything like overpopulation. They say, oh, we could double, triple our population, no problem. But really there's sustainability, it just doesn't add up. But beyond all that, with so many people in the world, it's so hard for the individual to stand out anymore. I often wonder if some of the poets of old, even the Robert Frost, the English poets, the musicians of old, composers, I wonder if they would, some of these guys, I wonder if they would have been able to, certainly some would, but I just think it's so much harder for someone to make it and stand out in the world today. In some ways there's easier ways to communicate if you have something really great. But the amateur to me has been much downplayed. The few people in the neighborhood who are real good at this or that task, well, now there's people in China who can do it better than anybody, or cheaper than anybody, or it's kind of taken the local artists, the local singers, the local performers. I don't know. I know there's still a lot of that going on. It just seems like it's so much harder for anyone to really make their mark anymore. But in general, the bigger point is having billions of people on the planet. We're kind of like flies, I could see being fruitful and multiplying at some point, at the biblical times when we were such a small population. But to say that never changes, that any advice given in the Bible should never be changed, I just think we've trivialized our existence by making so many of ourselves. We've come like flies on the poop. It's just so hard, for the individual to have his own way, have his own mark. Of course, a lot of people don't really seek that. A lot of people just want to fit in and do their time. They want to just have the car, have the luxuries, have the wife. That's all they really seek. Or at least on the surface that seems that way. Other thoughts on the subject. John brought up, how short we've been on the planet in terms of how long the planet's been here. Of course, we have half the population who thinks that we've only been here for 5,000 years. The whole anti-science, Republican anti-science move, or biblical move that we've only been here for 5,000 years and 6,000 years or whatever. But from the science point of view, that the Earth has been around so many billions of years, and mankind has only been on here just the smallest sliver of time that mankind's really been around. So there's that. In the time dimension, we've only been on this realm, this particular dimension or whatever it is, for a very short time, our species. And also looking at the electromagnetic spectrum, we really perceive such a small sliver of that perspective, of that spectrum, I should say. We're such a small sliver of time, such a small sliver of what we can perceive within what we know is out there. We probably don't even really know the half of it. There could be other dimensions that are even in the physical plane here. We could have other people who are other dimensions almost coexistent with ours that are just slightly different in frequency. Their matter is just on a slightly different principle or slightly different frequency. Could be a whole different trip. Or even size. You look at electron microscopes and you go down to the micro, and there's a whole different world there. The little mites and stuff walking around that we don't even perceive. It's like a whole different world, even just by going in our current dimension and range of perception and just narrowing down to tiny or to macro or to, where you look at the planets and the galaxies and, man, holy knows. We've got a universe full of galaxies, but maybe there's other universes just separated by wide, bursts of space or frequency, or I don't know. It just seems that there's so much out there. Even with our own physical universe, there's just so much out there. We are just so tiny. It really seems folly to believe that we're the only life in the whole cosmos. It just seems, ridiculous, laughable. There's so many more places where there could be other dimensions as equally as rich as ours. And so many planets and solar systems and galaxies, and it just seems, totally improbable that we're the only individual life forms on existing. So I wonder how similar or how different other situations are. But we're all just a cog in the great machine, I guess. It's really hard to say what the purpose is. But to bring it back, I really wonder about the individual. Thoughts are welcome, of course.